Hello and welcome to the programme where you can help solve crime. As always, what you see tonight will be for real. Actual witnesses help us reconstruct events as and where they happened, and police reveal new evidence from their inquiries. Maybe you'll find you know something the police don't know. If so, the detectives behind me are waiting for your call. This is the main number, 01 811 8055.
You can speak in absolute confidence to the police, or if you prefer to, a BBC researcher. And please do be ready to write things down in case you do see something that you recognise. Indeed, you might. Thanks to your calls, Crimewatch can again report results.
As a direct result of last month's programme, a man has now been charged with murder. Martin Daly, a laundry worker, was killed at his home in Brixton in South London last December. Immediately after our appeal last month, a viewer rang with information that led to a major police operation and eventually to the arrest of a man who appeared in court today and has been remanded in custody.
And another charge of murder has been brought following a Crimewatch reconstruction back in March. Elizabeth Sutherland, the mother of 2 young children, was killed in September last year at her home in the Black Isle near Inverness. The villagers of Culbokey were shocked and frightened by the murder. It's taken many weeks to follow up almost 100 calls to Crimewatch, but on Wednesday of last week, a man from Humberside appeared in the Sheriff's Court at Tain, and he is now in custody.
And after last month's programme, a man has been charged with an offence under the Theft Act. This advertisement encouraged many unemployed people to send off large sums of money in the hope of getting a job. We showed a photo of a suspect, but police didn't know who he was. Well, a number of viewers put the same name to that face, and a man was arrested that evening.
And from last month, a tantalising lead on the Madonna and Child from Tewkesbury Abbey. After seeing our reconstruction of the theft, a man rang the studio and later called the Abbey vicar. Now, from what he said, it's clear that he had the statue, and he may well have bought it in good faith, but sadly he hasn't returned it as he promised. Now, please, we want that viewer to call again in absolute confidence.
We start this month with a murder. It's particularly disturbing because it's believed it could have been racially motivated. Just over 6 weeks ago, Mrs. Shamira Kassam and her 3 children died when a fire was deliberately started at their home in Chadwell Heath, Essex. Mrs. Kassam was expecting a 4th child, which would have been due this month. The police reconstruction here shows how the house in Oakwood Gardens was probably entered by someone climbing through the kitchen window. Once inside, 4 or 5 pints of petrol were poured in the hallway and set alight. Whoever it was left by the back door. It happened at 5 to 4 in the morning on the 13th of July. That's late Friday night, early Saturday. Just minutes before the fire started, a car was seen speeding away from the house in Green Lane, just around the corner. It's thought to have been an orange Toyota automatic, like this one, made in the mid-70s. The car has not been traced. As neighbours and passers-by tried desperately to rescue the family, a red Vauxhall Cavalier with an A registration stopped opposite the house. There were 4 or 5 men inside, and none of them made any attempt to help. One man got out and stood watching the fire. He was later seen at the front of the house holding a brick. This is a new Crimewatch video fit of that man. He's about 35, 5'10", well-built with mousy brown hair, a moustache, and he may have been wearing glasses with metal frames. There had been 2 previous arson attacks on that same house. One was in December 1982, when another Asian family was living there, and one on the 16th of June this year. That was just a month before that fatal fire. Detective Chief Superintendent Don Gibson is leading the inquiry. Mr. Gibson, a really tragic, appalling crime.
Yes, quite horrific. In fact, the police officers who were first on the scene were appalled by what they saw.
Was this, in your view, a racist attack?
It's a frightening possibility that it may have been racially motivated, but there's no evidence to show that it was. It's a terrible attack, there's no getting away from that, but there's no evidence to show that it was racially motivated. So therefore we are looking at this aspect along with 6 other lines of inquiry.
But that was the second attack on this house in less than a month, and there are increasing numbers of racial attacks in your particular area. What protection are you giving to Asian families in your area now?
Well, I think it's right to say at the beginning that there are a lot of attacks taking place on Asian families. Whether they're racial or not is a matter that's got to be decided on later on. But in response to the second attack, which occurred on the 16th of June, special units of the SPG have been drafted in, dog handlers, DSU, quite a lot of police officers put in there purely and simply to try and reassure the people who live in that area.
Now, for people watching tonight, how might they be able to help you with this crime?
Well, first of all, we want the person who was driving the Toyota to come forward and be identified. He might be able to give us quite invaluable information. Then there's the driver and the 4 people who were with the driver in the A registration Cavalier. We feel that they could also give us some useful information.
And perhaps we could have one more look at the video fit of that man.
Yes, as you can see, he's about 30 to 35 years of age, 5'10". He's got mousy brown hair, quite smartly dressed. And I think we must bear in mind that it's about 4 o'clock in the morning, so he may have been to a nightclub or something along those lines. But most particularly of all, we would like to speak to anyone who's got any connection or any knowledge of the Kassam family. And of that, I mean not just Mr. Kassam and his wife, but also Mr. Kassam's brother, who was in the house, very badly injured, and is still in hospital.
We'll let you get to the phones, Mr. Gibson. Thank you very much. The number to ring is Chadwell Heath Police Station on 01597 0025. And that number is also incidentally given on these posters, which police are now distributing around the central London and Essex area. Or you can ring us here in the studio on 01811 8055. Sergeant Desmond Michael is one of the officers working with Chief Superintendent Gibson on the case. He speaks Hindi, and there are BBC researchers here too who speak Gujarati, Punjabi and Hindi. They are all now waiting to take your call.
In the last 12 months, one man has been responsible for 11 raids on building societies. He started in Catford in South London and has since struck throughout London and the home counties. In total, the robber has now stolen nearly £500,000. He's quiet, he's well-spoken, and he's armed with a pistol or a sawn-off shotgun. Now, he's almost courteous sometimes, but though he may not know it, he's left 11 people and their families frightened and disturbed. He's attacked each building society with the same technique. He waits till they've closed, and then he singles out one member of staff who holds the keys. We're showing you security details which we're assured have since been changed. The raid we're reconstructing was at the end of June in Brentwood, Essex. For Peter Chapman, the assistant manager, June the 28th was like any other Friday evening. He was looking forward to the weekend. Just after 5 o'clock, he ushered out the staff and locked the premises. His car was in a small private car park at the back of the building society.
Your tyres slashed?
Yeah, same thing happened last Tuesday.
It's happened to me 3 times in the last 2 weeks. I told the police about it, but there's nothing they can do. They said there's been a spate of them in Brentwood. You work here, do you? Abbey National?
Yeah, assistant manager.
I've been toying with the idea of opening a couple of building society accounts.
You should do. Come and see me, we'll talk about it, all right?
Yeah, why not? Love to. I'll tell you what. You know, somebody told me that if it's a regular thing, you can claim criminal damages from the police.
I'll go straight down the cop shop. I know a few of them down there anyway.
You know what this is, don't you? Get into the passenger seat. Move! Put your hands on the dash. You're not surprised, are you?
Just give me a couple of minutes to get my breath back, all right?
Would you like a drink? A cigarette?
No.
You're not going to do anything silly, are you?
No, I'm not daft.
You tell me in detail about the alarm systems in your branch now.
Well, as the first alarm systems we go into the building...
Peter Chapman had no option. For several minutes, the gunman questioned him, but it was clear that he already knew it all.
If anything goes off, you are in trouble. In a minute, we're going to go back round the front. Now, if you try to run away or say anything, I may not kill you, but you'll never walk again because I'll shoot you in the back. And if we see anybody on our way around, you should acknowledge them. And you chat to me as if you've known me for years. Put your jacket on. Get out. You all right?
Fine.
I'm sorry about your tire. I'll give you some money for another one. It's the only way I could stop you. Get my briefcase. We'll go in. Open the safe.
I'll have to get the key stem from my drawer.
I know. Take the tins out of the safe and open them.
I can't. The cashiers have got the only keys.
You can use the spares that are taped on the back of the door, can't you? Good. Walk away from the safe. Sit on the floor. Sit. Now lie face down with your hands out front and your legs spread. Now! Put your hands behind your back.
You're not taking me with you then?
Put your legs together. No, you've been a good boy, so I won't. I'm going now. Stay there. Don't even think about moving for at least 10 minutes. What the bloody hell do you think you're doing? I told you to stay there.
Chief Inspector John Bassett, what happened next?
The assistant manager was tied up again and he was left unharmed. The robber then left the building society, stole the assistant manager's car and left it unattended in a multi-storey car park 150 yards away.
Now that, as we saw, was a white Escort, so people might have seen him driving it to the car park, and of course they might have seen him in that walk from the car park at the back of the Abbey National round to the front.
Yes, what we're looking for is anyone that was in Brentwood at this particular point in time and saw the robber taking the assistant manager to the bank or saw anything at the multi-storey car park which made them suspicious.
Round there to the Abbey National Building Society. Now, I gather the robber was so audacious that he actually, at one stage, in a different attack, took a building society member of staff on a bus at gunpoint.
Yes, what he did back in February of this year, he waited for the assistant manager to arrive home at Bromley, and then once he'd alighted from the bus, he took him back to the branch in Lewisham on a 208 bus, and that is a distance of 3.5 miles. And again, we're looking for anybody that can remember this incident at all.
7:20 p.m, this is the 5th of February.
That is correct, yes.
Now, you've got some photo fits, or you've got at least some descriptions of the man. We've got here some pictures, and in the centre that's a composite, is that right, from different raids?
That's very, very good indeed.
And we've also got a video fit, which we at Crimewatch have compiled.
Yes, that is even better, but I do feel that the greatest likeness is the likeness of your actor to our suspect, and this has been verified by 2 assistant managers who have seen him, and when he's walked in unannounced, they've been terrified of him.
Yes, I must make this point that he looks an almost glamorous character, cool, collected, and kids, other people may think he's almost heroic. In fact, he must have absolutely terrified people out of their wits and affected their families quite a lot.
Yes, there's nothing glamorous about this man at all. He is a dedicated, ruthless robber who will go to any lengths to secure his ends.
What, do you think he'd shoot? He'd use that gun or the knife that we saw?
Well, to date, he's been quite vicious. He hasn't harmed anybody physically yet, but I do fear that if he's allowed to continue, he will wound someone or maybe fatally, or wound them fatally.
You've brought this piece of string. Now tell me the significance of that.
Well, this is string that he used to bind up his victims in the earlier raids on the building societies. We've had it tested forensically, and I'm told that it's not manufactured in this country or even in Ireland, and we feel that possibly it was manufactured on the continent and is a cheap rope that is possibly used in agriculture.
Which you want to trace. I gather, very unusually, there's a reward on this.
There is. This is unprecedented. The Abbey National, because they view this man so seriously, are making a reward of £10,000 for any person that can give me information that will lead to the arrest and conviction of this man.
All right, Chief Inspector Bassett, thank you very much. If you can help in any way, please do so before this man really does shoot someone. You might save a life by calling, in confidence, 01811 8055. Or you can ring, remember the reward, Central Robbery Squad on 01230 2061. That's 01230 2061.
Well, now the Crimewatch Incident Desk. Here are Constable Helen Phelps and Superintendent David Hatcher.
First on the incident desk, a sad story with an urgent appeal. Cyril Martin is 63. He's a widower from Maidenhead and has 6 children. Recently, he's been sleeping rough in a disused outhouse at the back of the old art college in Maidenhead. On Wednesday morning, the 21st of August, workmen found Mr. Martin unconscious in the outhouse. He'd been severely beaten about the head and is now critically ill. It's thought he'd been robbed. The night before, that's Tuesday the 20th of August, he'd spent the evening at the Bell pub in King Street. He left at 5 to 11 and walked about 300 yards to the Brewer's Tea House, where he was seen talking to 2 men. Those 2 men have not yet come forward. They can ring us tonight in confidence. From the pub, Mr. Martin would have taken the pedestrian subway under the A4, walked back along Marlow Road, and then along this lane down the side of the art college. He was wearing a scruffy donkey jacket and possibly a check cap and glasses. If you saw him, or anyone with him, or if you were in those pubs at closing time, please ring us now.
Viewers in Merseyside may be able to help us find a rapist. The attack was 3 weeks ago on Friday, the 9th of August. A woman was jogging on the seafront at Crosby at 8 o'clock that morning. As she passed these railings, a man grabbed her, dragged her inside a nearby shelter, and then raped her. When another jogger came past, the rapist ran off, across the car park, towards the swimming baths in Mariners Road, and then disappeared. But we do have a good description. He's about 30 years old, 5'10", with light brown or ginger hair and a moustache. He's broad-shouldered and about 12 stone. If you recognise him, please ring us. And there's another clue. He was wearing overalls exactly like these. You can see they're a distinctive blue. Perhaps you know someone who wears similar ones at work. So remember, a 12-stone man with ginger brown hair and a moustache who wears bright blue overalls. Your call could prevent another rape.
Next, an attempted armed robbery which began in a wheelchair and ended in a puff of orange smoke. On Saturday the 20th of July, an Armour Guard security van was making its weekly collection at the hypermarket in Widnes in Cheshire. It was 5:15. As the guard went in, he noticed two men. One was in a wheelchair. A few minutes later, when he came out, the man in the wheelchair had miraculously recovered and produced a shotgun. They attacked the guard and forced him to drop the cash box, and then they made their getaway in a white Ford Orion. The security guards gave chase in their van, and when suddenly orange smoke poured out of the cash box, the robbers panicked and threw it out of the window. The car was abandoned in St Paul's Road, right where the buses stop. This blue-black jumper and these tracksuit trousers were left in the car. You can still see the orange smoke stain on the trousers. And they also left behind this army-style kit bag. It had the number 244866696 and the name Sapper Ryan Thomas on it. If you recognise any of this lot, or if you saw the car being abandoned, ring us before these two try the same thing again.
Sussex Police need your help to find another armed robber. The security camera at the Alliance Building Society took this video of him entering their branch in Dyke Road, Hove. It was 10:30 in the morning of July the 29th. At this moment, he was pulling a gun on the cashier, and he then passed her a note demanding cash. She did as she was asked and gave him £1,000. Another cashier and the customer, who'd just come in, could only stand and watch as the man filled up his bag and calmly walked out with his gun in his hand. Do you recognise him? He's in his late 20s and 6 foot tall. The moustache is probably false, and his cap is hiding longish hair. If you saw him on July the 29th, that was a Monday, or if you know who he might be, please ring us.
There's been a spate of car radio thefts from Vauxhall compounds throughout the south of England. So far, over £350,000 worth have gone. They began in Oxford in April when 40 radios were stolen in one night. Throughout May, car pounds from Croydon to Gravesend lost over 100 radios. And last on the list was Newhaven on the night of May the 28th. The car pound there is on New Road, and the routine was crude but effective. The thief, or thieves, smashed the rear quarter lights and then removed the radios. On that night, 104 radios were stolen. These are the models that we're looking for. They're Philips PLL quartz tuning radio cassettes, model number 441 and 741. You don't often find these at ordinary retail outlets. Most of them are fitted into Vauxhall cars. So if you've been offered any Philips radio cassettes on the cheap, remember the numbers 441 or 741, then give us a ring.
And the number to ring, if you can help with any of those cases, is 01 811 8055. 01 811 8055.
In our next reconstruction, we're taking you back exactly 7 weeks to Preston in Lancashire. It's an especially sad story because the victim was a 9-year-old boy, Imran Vora. We start in Avenham in Preston on Thursday the 11th of July. At Frenchwood Junior School, it's the last lesson of the day.
Not just cut in half the E shape, but we get a mirror image. If we put a mirror there, as we've tried before, we get the full E. So what I want you to do with your worksheets is take the first worksheet with the capital letter shapes on. And
Imran was a cheerful boy. His teachers found him reliable, and he was popular with classmates, though reserved and rather quiet.
that you can find in those capital letters.
He loved sports. Just the previous afternoon, he'd won several prizes at the school's sports day.
Is that the only line symmetry? Is it? You've checked it. OK, children, there's the bell. We need to pack away quickly today, so can you just slip everything into your drawer, please? Take care going home, and we'll see you tomorrow.
School finished at 3:15. But this Thursday, Imran and some of his friends stayed in the playground to play marbles for a while. The game over, Imran would normally walk home with his friends.
Are you not coming home today? Nah, I'm waiting for here for someone. I'll see you tomorrow.
He didn't say who he was waiting for. From this point on, precisely what happened is unclear. When one of Imran's classmates left the school, Imran was still standing at the gate. She thinks she saw a young Asian man across the road.
Imran!
And she says he called out to Imran. she's fairly sure he crossed over to the man and that they walked off together. Less certain is a sighting just after 4 o'clock in Avenham Lane. A witness saw a small boy crying. He thinks the boy was wearing a beige and brown anorak with a red stripe, similar to Imran's. The boy disappeared down Shepherd Street. Another possibility, about 4:15, a motorist saw a boy a little further down Avenham Lane. He was in the company of a scruffy-looking man, maybe in his 40s. They were heading in the direction of Avenham Park. It's a popular area with open spaces and woodland used by many people as a shortcut. At about 4:30, this woman clearly recalls seeing a small boy in a beige and brown anorak. The boy was on his own, and when she glanced back, he was gone. Any of these sightings could have been of Imran, for he often came to Avenham Park to play. He had a series of dens all over the park, and he'd spend many afternoons here, sometimes with friends, often alone. What's known for certain is that on Thursday afternoon, Imran failed to turn up for lessons at the local mosque. He was due there with all the other Muslim children in the area at 5 o'clock. By 9 o'clock, when he still hadn't come home, his parents were so worried that they decided to call in the police. Neighbours were alerted, and on Friday morning, the police launched a major inquiry. They appealed for information in English and in Urdu.
9 साला इमरान वोहरा कल से पहर कोई 3:30 बजे आखिरी बार एवनहम पार्क के नज़दीक फ्रेंच वुड जूनियर स्कूल के बाहर देखा गया था. इसके बाद आपने अगर उसे देखा हो या इसके बारे में कोई खबर मिली हो तो मेहरबानी करके मुकामी पुलिस से राब्ता कायम करें. इमरान भूरे
They began a thorough search of the whole district. It went on late into Friday night and was resumed at 5 a.m, first light on Saturday. Many of the family's friends and neighbours joined in to help. 40 minutes later, at a place known locally as the tipping area, here near the old tram bridge, they found Imran.
Come here, quick! Come over here!
He was lying in one of his dens. He'd been sexually assaulted and strangled. Superintendent John Boyd, this is a ghastly crime.
Yes, it is. It's a horrible sexual crime. Imran was a victim of a horrible sexual assault. He probably, when the assault was being committed, he probably had a ligature around his neck. This ligature subsequently strangled him.
Now, there must have been people who saw Imran that day and who saw whoever was the killer, though they may not have realised anything significant in what they saw. Let's just remind ourselves, we've got a map which shows where the body was found. Yeah. And there it is by the old
tram bridge
in Avenham Park.
Yes.
Now, the school is where in relation?
The school is on the right.
Frenchwood Junior School.
About 400 or 500 yards away.
OK. Now, it was there at Frenchwood School, of course, that one of Imran's friends saw him with an older man. She's pretty sure of that, isn't she?
Yes, she is a schoolmate of Imran's, and she knew Imran. She saw Imran standing at the school gate, and she saw a man across the road who was described as being about 5'10" or 6 foot, in his late 20s, slim, black hair. She just said he was an Asian man, and she knows the Asian community.
Now, obviously, we badly need to find anyone who knew Imran in relation to an older man.
Yes, that's correct. If it is true that this man picked Imran up from school, then Imran must have known him beforehand, and we would like to know of the association.
Now, what about people in the park? There must have been lots of people, potential witnesses there.
There's a lot of people in the park who originally were unidentified. A number of them now have been identified. We urgently need these people to come forward. They might think they can't help us, but we need to eliminate them because we have their descriptions, and probably we have the description of the killer.
Now, I gather that the park is sometimes used by gays, by homosexuals. They may be reluctant to call in.
Yes, a number of them frequent the public conveniences in the park. It's their focal point. We have interviewed a large number of them, but in fairness to them, they are cooperating and they are giving us information.
There was a boy seen running from the park. I know that you really want to trace him badly, to eliminate him.
About 4:15, a boy was seen running along South Meadow Lane away from the park. He's about 15, fairish ginger hair, a cream-coloured shirt and a grey sweater and green slacks. The thing about him was that he looked frightened, and he was running faster than he would normally do on a jogging run.
And I know that a week before the murder, a man was seen with a younger Asian boy.
On the Thursday before the murder, about 400 yards away from the murder scene, a man who is described as being 35 to 40 years was seen in Miller Park, which adjoins Avenham Park, at 4:30. He was seen in some bushes with a 10-year-old boy who was an Asian boy. There is no evidence that this was Imran, and it probably wasn't Imran.
Okay, so you need to find him and indeed anyone else to eliminate themselves, but also just in case they saw something which will fit in with something else
We
that you
need
know.
these people to come forward to assist the inquiries.
All right, and kids, of course, if you can help in any way, I don't know, if you were smoking in the park or doing something you don't want to tell your parents, please do. It's so important. If you think you can help with any leads at all, please tell your parents, please call us. It's in confidence. And here's the number, 01811 8055. The incident room is at Preston on 54811. That's 0772 54811.
Well, now to our Aladdin's Cave. From gold watches to stuffed ducks, stolen valuables recovered by the police who need to find their owners. To describe them, here's John Bly from the Antiques Roadshow. John.
Thank you, Sue. Well, in between those two extremes, we've in fact got some very good furniture. For example, we've got a little child's chair here, the rush seat straight out of somebody's Victorian playroom, but it's got a distinctive little pattern carved in the top rail. Somebody ought to recognise that. Through that, and rather quickly passing some unmusical musical gongs to something that I really do enjoy talking about, and that's a decent bit of English furniture. We've got here a little George III whatnot, I suppose about 1820 to possibly 1830. Lovely quality, 4 tiers, little turn columns and ending in a drawer at the bottom. That's a very scarce item now, you know, especially of this quality, as I say. And talking of quality, how about that for the best of English porcelain painting? What a treasure. You'd never find a better example than that. We've got, too, a little chest, a little box here rather. This is rosewood, it's Regency, it's about 1820, 1825. It's got distinctive little inset panels of mother of pearl. Also the inside bears its original paper. It's been forced open, I'm afraid, but it's not beyond repair. Nor too is this little folding bridge table of the Edwardian period. A lovely quality thing with lots of rosewood and marquetry panels. Somebody must be missing that. How do they play bridge without it? My favourite, though, really is this miniature chest of drawers, made between about 1805 and 1810. It's datable fairly accurately by this little black line around each drawer, these lovely type of escutcheons, campaign escutcheons, and then totally original are these little splay feet at the bottom. Now, you know, some people call these chests apprentice pieces. Others see them as miniature samples of full-size furniture. Whatever their original use, they're now most commonly used, and ideally so, for taking jewellery caskets. Now, talking of jewellery, perhaps the most upsetting loss is that of jewellery because it's so much more personal than the other antiques we deal with. For example, Rita's husband must be missing this little medallion, and these photographs must mean something very dear and very precious to somebody. Back here in the antique line, I've got one of the best 18th century pocket watches I've seen for a long time. This is by Prevost of London. I'm going to open it and hope that you can see the extraordinarily fine detail on the inside. What a work of art that is. That certainly is worthy of any fine collection and, of course, Aladdin's Cave. Now, Sue mentioned earlier stuffed ducks. Before you can mount a family of ducks like that, you've actually got to catch them. And I'm quite sure that this decoy brought about the downfall of many a good duck. These are now highly collectible, some of them making hundreds of pounds. Not this one, but this is distinctive because it has a splash of red paint on the front. Perhaps you spilt the paint, or you know somebody who did. Anyway, if you recognise this or anything else here, please give us a ring.
Indeed, here's the number 01811 8055, 01811 8055.
Our last reconstruction tonight concerns the murder of a 61-year-old shopkeeper in Bristol exactly 6 weeks ago. Roy Page ran a corner sweet shop in the old part of Bedminster and regularly stayed open from early morning to late in the evening. His body was found in the back of the shop on Thursday the 18th of July. Whoever killed him left behind one vital clue, this earpiece. A man wearing an identical earpiece and claiming to be a gas board engineer visited 2 tobacconists in the north of Bristol on the morning of that same day. By the afternoon, he had then moved south of the city to Bedminster, which is where our reconstruction begins. Roy Page had been running his corner shop for 10 years. He often spent a lot of his day watching the television between customers. Bedminster is a small community, and most of his customers were regulars.
Hello?
He had a safe in the back of his shop, but had a habit of leaving it open to get change when he needed it. Since his wife died 3 years ago, his sister Shirley came round every Thursday to help in the house.
This money here, I'm putting it back in the safe.
You worry too much.
Okay, I'm
You
off
off
now
now,
then.
sis?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye, sis. See you tomorrow.
Bye.
At about 4:30 that afternoon, a man was seen hanging around outside the shop. He was carrying what looked like a small transistor radio and wearing an earpiece and headsets. Minutes later, the same man was seen outside another tobacconist in the next street. Tom Coles, who lives opposite Roy, would pop in several times a day.
Hello, Roy. Can I have an M60 cigar, please?
Wait. I was earlier today.
Well, not too bad. Just part with it, I suppose. I'll see you later on. Okay, bye for now.
At 4:45, the man in blue overalls was seen crossing the road away from Roy's shop.
I'm checking for gas leaks in the area up and down this road. I've got a meter around the corner. Have you got any gas leaks here at all?
No, none at all. Have you tried the lady around the corner?
No, I'll do it now.
He'd now been wandering around this small area for a good half an hour.
Hello, I'm looking for a gas leak. Have you got any gas?
Oh, I haven't. I've got it on.
Please. Do you mind if I
No.
I've got to have a look because
Please.
I've
Oh,
had
dear.
reports in the area of a gas leak, you see.
Well, there you are, look.
Oh, it's just a gas stove, is it then?
Yes.
You just got this one. Any other gas appliances anywhere?
Well, not in this room, in the other room.
What happened here then?
Well,
After several minutes, during which the man appeared genuine, he then began to act strangely.
all right, okay.
You ever got a
Okay.
glass of water?
Yes, of course. But I think you better let me do it because
All right.
this is a terrible tap.
He was sweating heavily.
Perhaps you'd like a cup of tea, would you?
No, I can't, sir,
I'll make
because
you
my
one.
meat's going up the other side of
I'll
the
make
road.
one
No,
willingly.
don't worry, because
He suddenly appeared agitated and anxious to get away.
you know, he's coming up. I've got to join him. There's other gas leaks in the area, you see. I'm sorry about that. Look, I've got to...
He crossed the road back towards Roy Page's shop.
Up ahead of him, about 100 yards ahead, is the Suez Canal, a big wide ditch that runs right across this 14th fairway.
20 minutes had passed when Mrs. Martina Allen came in. She is the last known person to have seen Roy Page alive.
You want one with roses?
Dead straight on. The last open here of this one, they've allowed the brush to grow in from the right.
How much?
£1.34.
Quiet, isn't it?
Quiet in here.
Yet 3 further items had been rung up on the till after she left. Tom Coles had noticed that the shop had been closed for a little while. He knew Roy was a diabetic and was worried that he might be ill.
The 6 o'clock news from the BBC with Sue Lawley and Andrew Harvey.
Today, he did not think the children who went down the cliff were in any immediate danger. It's the 4th day of the inquest into the deaths of 4 of his pupils who were... The battle against the drug traffickers. The government is sending undercover agents. Big pay increases have been recommended for top civil servants, judges and senior members of the armed forces. Mrs. Thatcher has...
2 hours later, at 7:45, the police had been called.
I'll try and find where the motor is. Check that room. Neil, they're there.
Sometime between 5:20 and 6:10, Roy Page had been murdered.
So you better get an ambulance. Right, okay. I'll go outside.
Every gas appliance in the house had been turned full on. Well, Detective Superintendent Lou Clark, you're quite precise about the time that Roy was killed.
Well, Mrs. Allen says she left the shop about 5:20. We know that people went between 5:20 and about 6:10 and couldn't get in. The door was bolted, and a man was seen coming from the side of the shop, the one on the side.
We have a
on
reconstruction
Road.
of what was seen, yes.
Yes, about 6:10 to 6:15. The man was identical to the man seen earlier, posing as the gas board man. This time he was carrying something under his arm. We suspect that was the overall, which would now have been blood-stained.
We have a video fit of that man, if we can take a closer look at him once again. He's
Yes.
very heavily built, isn't he?
He is, some witnesses say, about 15 stone or more. He's a big man, 5'11" or more, 35 to 45 years, dark hair, and perhaps had a Welsh accent, wearing spectacles.
Why was Mr. Page murdered? Was the motive theft?
I would have thought it was theft, and I think it was a bungled crime. I think we were looking for a petty thief who goes in to distract shopkeepers and people in their homes so that he can steal. And I think Mr. Page caught him stealing, trapped him, and he had to kill Mr. Page to get out of the shop.
Well, as I said earlier, there was one vital clue left behind. It's this earpiece, which you're quite convinced, are you, that it was the killer who left this earpiece beside
It
Mr.
certainly
Page?
didn't belong to Mr. Page, and we know that that earpiece looked like this in its original state, from a typical transistor radio, some years old, but we know it didn't belong to the deceased, and a witness saw the gas man wearing an identical piece shortly after 4:30 that day.
And he was seen carrying a small black box too. Would this have been connected to a transistor radio?
Well, that's what we think. He's most probably using it to make people believe he's got some sort of instrument for detecting gas leaks.
What exactly did he steal?
He stole a cream-coloured plastic purse which had £700 in it, a white envelope with a name Paul written on the side in handwriting, that had £200, at least £149 from the till, and surprising, a hairbrush from the bedroom upstairs. This is the matching mirror that he didn't take, and as you see, there doesn't seem to be any reason to steal that at all, but it's missing from the premises. It's gone. And one thing I would like to say is that the deceased in this case was an ordinary working man. He worked 7 days a week, 7:30 in the morning to 8:30 in the evening, and his 2 sons and daughter are just the same, hard-working, ordinary people who are putting their life savings into offering a £5,000 reward leading to the arrest and conviction of their father's killer.
I hope you get some calls. Thank you very much indeed, Lou Clark.
Indeed, if you think you can help, please don't hesitate to call us 01811 8055, or you can call Bristol Police on 267 986. There's the number, 0272 for Bristol, 267 986.
And if you haven't had a chance to write the other numbers down, they'll be on CFAX all week on page 186. And if you don't have a phone or can't get through, drop us a line. Here's the address: Crimewatch UK, BBC TV Centre, London W12 8QT.
We'll be back to tell you what develops in an hour and a half from now. That's Crimewatch UK Update here on BBC One at 11:45. Now, if you can't stay up till then, don't worry. Callers and the police will be helping to solve these crimes, so please don't have nightmares. Do sleep well.
We'll be waiting for your call. For the moment, good night.
Good night.